Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Christmas Eve 2020. Another week before we hit 2021. It's Thursday, the 24th of December 2020. Might feel hard done by. Some of us might feel hard done by. Coming into 2021. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you listen in. You want to better yourself. Your aspirations coming into 2021. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself as the prodigious, the prominent professor at Proclamation News and Thank you all for actually coming together. You know, we've had so much public austerity go on this last year. A lot of us feeling hard done by. A lot of us feeling very, very hard done by, but not realising how thankful, how lucky we are to be in the United Kingdom. How our government supports us financially. Some of you think you ain't getting enough money. Some of you sitting here think you're not getting enough support, not getting enough money. Let me tell you, you can live on £15 a week on food. I overcompensate on my shopping just to make sure I get through my months, get through the weeks, because I suffer with secondary brain arts. You don't need X amount of money for alcoholism. You don't need X amount of money for narcotics. I have got one flaw that I own up to. I smoke tobacco. I could better myself, you know. We all have flaws in life. You need to admit your flaws. We are going to get on with UK politics live in Westmisnter and live in Essex, my constituency where I'm sitting today. But first of all, I want to reflect on 2020 before we have Christmas Day, Thanksgiving for everyone. I say Thanksgiving. We've had Thanksgiving, but it's, traditional celebration with our families. Traditional celebration with our families. Absolutely. Happy Christmas to everyone. Thank you all for coming through, supporting the show. First of all, a lot of people losing their jobs. X amount of people throughout the whole of the United Kingdom and US, everywhere in the world has been affected. China gone back to normal. Nigel Farage. Let's talk about Nigel Farage. We shouldn't put, the politicians down. We shouldn't put the politicians down, but we all have opinions and we all have international Bill of Rights. We're allowed opinion. We're allowed to, we've all got virtue and we're allowed to say our opinion. Nigel Farage got some flaws. I'm not going to totally write him off. He's an ex-alcoholic, probably still suffering, drinking, perhaps. Some of his, headlines that he comes out of, I'm wondering if he's still suffering alcoholism, or maybe he's just getting at that age now where it could be a little bit of senile dementia in his older age. So we're not going to write him off as a human being because he is a good human being. He supports the Republicans. He supports the British people. But I'm very good at reading. I'm a critical thinker. I might not be brilliant at my academics, which I was hoping for to be one of the best students, as I'm quite substantial with my jurisdiction when it comes to politics, when it comes to criminal law, when it comes to family law. But in abundance, I can't be pragmatic at everything. I can't know everything. It's like you're an electrician. You can't also be a phenomenal bricklayer. You can be good at one thing, but not too good at the other. But anyway, I'm talking about pragmatic and optimistic sense. When you guys come in, all the time to support the show. You know what I know and know what I don't know within politics. Without left and right of politics, there is no bird. There is no two wings of to make politics, to make a policy, to make a. You got to have pros and cons in politics, haven't you? You got to have, what's going on here? Anyway, moving on. Nigel Farage, where was he? This, like I was saying, reflection of 220. There's so many courses to better your situation in life. You don't want to be furloughed off work. Maybe working outdoors isn't for you. Maybe you want to better your aspirations. Did you know our government are putting adult learning, adult colleges on to better yourself? It's adult college, as in you want to be a, I don't know, HR. You want to work in HR or payroll assistant, which is HR, or accountant, or you want to be a PA, personal assistant. You want to work in office, so you're working all year round. Obviously, a lot of them working from home at the moment because of COVID-19. They're having X amount in office, but having restrictions so that all don't come down with COVID. But you can work, in home. You can be working all year round, working in home. Such as myself, this is my home studio. I'm on Castbox FM, I'm on YouTube, I'm on all social media platforms. So as we're moving forward, so I'll give you an idea. You can better your aspirations. Get yourself in adult learning college to better your future, to support your loved ones. You want to be in work. You want to keep your methodical madness, to keep you away from domesticated, not violence so much, just domesticated abuse. You don't be shouting amongst your household. Better your aspirations in life. Open a book. Start from the beginning. You need to brush up your English. Start reading. Everyone suffers with mental health. I suffer with mental health. We all do. Boris Johnson suffers with mental health. He might be financially stable, financially a wealthy man, but he's still got outgoings. He's still got a life. I've got little outgoings, but believe me, my life is probably a little bit more simple than Boris Johnson's. I know I've had a bit of an impairment in my latter years, but you move on, you live with it, you move on. There's always someone worse off around the corner. So don't ever sit there feeling sorry for yourself. About time to pick yourself up and better yourself. Admit your flaws, move on. Anyway, Nigel Farage. Not going to write him off, but again, what is he talking and whinging about again? The other morning, he was moaning that the EU, aka France, have closed their borders for the UK entering across from Dover to France. I mean, we get a lot of our fruit and veg coming through France at Dover. There's a lot of lorries that couldn't get through, but they shut their borders. I mean, let's be honest, do you blame them? I mean, we have high rates of COVID. Secondly, we voted Brexit. We voted for Brexit, didn't we? So they're gonna play the game till we get some sort of deal done, aren't they? You either want to be in the EU or you don't. So they're shutting their borders. I mean, to me, like I say, he's most certainly truer from the unenforced horses. He's not always politically wrong. Don't get me wrong, because he wasn't sure about the Brexit or I don't think a lot of people have been sure about going with Brexit, living off own resources. But it's come to the time. Obviously, the negotiations has been made place today. The deadline was today, and they've made negotiations all settled. I'm not going to go tell you what it is. I don't want to ruin the show, but the negotiations have been settled. So, like I was saying, if we exit with the Brexit, we don't need to trade with the EU, Nigel. You voted it, and so do we. We all did. Give it a break, or the whiskey, I said. Do they give any imperative, incompetent politician a free entry into the House of Commons? I'd even ban him from sitting as spectators at the audience. He's a minstrel, he really is. I know he's one for the British people, but what for? The British topers at a bar or club down in whiskey. Anyway, I said that. You say things in jest, but you think back on it. He supported Trump in rallies and whatnot. A lot of people writing Trump off. A lot of people writing Biden off. There's a dozen one and a dozen of the other. So you can't really sit there and become critical. No one can. It's either be a player or play the game. As simple as that. There's only two sides to the story. Rather than be a critic and to keep writing someone off, You got to think methodically. You want to be in this business, you got to get on with everyone. You got to get on with everyone. You can't just keep writing everyone off. I do it on my social media, and really, it's kind of mental abuse what you write on your wall. I don't know if Nigel probably won't even acknowledge half the things I do, but people that support him, it's messing with their mental health. Think, why do you keep picking on Nigel Farage? He's a politician. He's done his term in college. He's done his term in university. He is where he is because he sat and done his academics. I haven't quite got through mine yet, so I shouldn't be here sitting writing him off. But we all deserve a chance at life, and I've got a good. I've got a good, depiction of within politics. I know a fair amount. I don't know everything. I know a fair amount with politics. I mean, you'll come in, listen to the Daily Show, and you think this guy is quite phenomenal what he does now, considering his impairment. I don't give up. I keep trying. Anyway, we can look at this. We're looking after Christmas. We're looking after the New Year. So we're looking at the staggered return for England's secondary school next term. They're going back to school after the New Year. When are they going back? And how are they going to go back within this Tier 4 system? Return to secondary school in January will be staggered in England, with some pupils starting online rather than in class, says the government. It will allow schools to set up COVID testing scheme, but exam year pupils will start term as usual. So I think in January, they're adamant that everyone's going to be getting this COVID. This COVID is probably the test. You're going to be getting the injection, basically. It will allow schools to set up COVID testing scheme, but exam year pupils will start term as usual. But when these kids get tested positive, it gets put in the news, in the media. It frightens the old teachers, frightens the parents, doesn't it? The National Education Union said making an announcement right at the end of the school term showed panic. Education Secretary Gavin Williams said testing will clamp down on the virus after the Christmas break. Armed Forces personnel will support the planning for testing in schools, says the Department for Education. Apart from those taking GCSEs, A-levels and vocational exams next year, secondary school pupils will study online for the first week back in January. This is to allow schools to make preparations for mass COVID testing, which will offer school staff a test each week and a daily test for 7 days for pupils in contact with a positive case. I'm going to pause in a minute. I'm just going to get through this last couple of paragraphs. Those exam year pupils returning face-to-face lessons will also be offered tests, with all testing to be on a voluntary basis and requiring parental consent. Face-to-face learning is expected to restart for all by 11th of January. A similar scheme have been announced for Wales, where pupils went online on Monday. A full return to classroom is expected by 18th of January at the latest. The only kids that are going to really study at home, the ones that are going to push through and really want to study are the ones with parents that are pushing their children to get through their tuition levels. Because there's a lot of parents that maybe suffered their own academics through school. I'm only getting mine from my latter years in life. I get my academics at the age of 37, which I should have done when I was younger. I'm not gutted upon that I didn't do when I was younger, but I lived that life of an activist, doing all sporting. Every single sporting event I lacked. I didn't lack knowledge, I just lacked sitting all my exams because I was too busy with sporting events. These children, maybe I had ADHD, I always went to my feet, I always wanted to keep moving, doing rugby, football. My life's slowed down now, I've got time to sit and do my academics. These parents are going to struggle pushing their kids. That's the thing, you've got to make sure you push your children to sit at home and study at home. They want to better their lives when they come out of school. You want to make sure they go to college. do the further education to get them in a nice, comfortable job. Going out doing manual work. When they're getting to their, like my age, I'm almost getting my 40s, they start, getting rigor mortis now. You start getting, I've got Braintree, so, arthritis, everything like that. As you get in your 40s, doing manual work with your life, you're going to get arthritis in your lower back, in your hands, in your arms, in your elbow. People listening, don't take what I'm saying, as a narcissistic way. I'm just trying to say it for the better of your children. They do sport all their life and then they go into a manual job. It's going to, get damage in your ankles, your joints. As you get older, it gets worse. So, sit there with your children, make sure they push for their academics, is what I'm saying. Shambles. But school leaders have reacted angrily at having to set up and manage such a testing system with so little notice, with the National Association of Head Teachers calling it a shambles. They have handed schools a confused, a chaotic mess at the 11th hour, said the union's leader, Paul Whiteman. Jules White, head of Tangent House School in Horsham, said the government has spent $22 billion on a mass testing programme for test and trace. Schools are being asked to deliver mass testing for staff and students during the Christmas period with no funding, an idiot's guide handbook and barely any notice. The government is insisting the change to the start of term and is not an extension to the school holidays, and the primary schools will not be affected by the move. Army volunteers, but it's come after the Department for Education instructed all local authorities to keep schools open in the final days of the term, despite several initially telling parents that schools would close early, and head teachers calling for more flexibility for online study. Teaching unions have challenged and practically of being expected to train and deploy an army of volunteers to run the testing. The National Education Union has now written to Education Secretary Gavin Williamson saying the plans for school testing system are inoperable. It said, telling school leaders on the last day of term for many schools that they must organise volunteers and parents supported by their staff to test pupils in the first week of the term, whilst years 11 and 13 pupils are on site for in-school teaching. It is a ridiculous ask. Teachers were already exhausted by their unreasonable demands, backed by legal threats that they had been subjected to this term, said the union's letter. It added that running such medical procedures was significantly outside the experience and job description of school staff, highlighting expert advice that tests carried out by non-specialists were less likely to be effective. There's no time to prepare. Patrick Roach, General Secretary of the NASUWT Teachers Union, said, yet again the government is now announcing significant changes affecting schools little or no time to prepare before Christmas closure period. He said it was not the responsibility of teachers or school leaders to undertake testing of pupils or employers. The government has to ensure that its pupils into place all the necessary resources needed to deliver the practical and financial support to schools to ensure safety in schools, said Dr. Roach. The Association of College and the School Leaders General Secretary Geoff Barton said, we are very concerned about the feasibility of setting up a testing programme at the scale emphasised. He added the profession is very willing to work with the government over how to roll out mass testing, but ministers must understand that chaotic last-minute announcements do not constitute a collaborative approach. We're looking at the infection rates. As plans for January have been announced, an official study suggests virus rates in schools reflect levels in their local communities. Virus rates have been growing fast in some areas, including London and south east of England in recent weeks, with many schools affected. The analysis of tests on 10,000 staff and pupils from the Public Health England, Office for National Statistics and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine found 1 to 24% of pupils and 1 to 29% of staff tested positive for coronavirus in schools. However, the impact of those cases will have been felt by many more, as close contacts are required to go home and self-isolate. The governments of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland Monday. I'm so amazed how you guys all coming through supporting the show, helping me subscribe to the show, but also Proclamation News and Gatherings on YouTube, ladies and gents. So you on a car spot coming through, please subscribe to our YouTube content. I do have some netiquette research with the audience, so it's very, it's well worth to divert over to both, so you can interact, you can call in if you're affected by some of these areas. We've got, I'm looking at the news flash in your area. We've got flooding. It hits areas of England and Wales on Christmas Eve. Fire and rescue services were called times after heavy rain battered areas including Gloucestershire and East Anglia. I don't know if you've seen areas, houses underwater. Christmas Eve. Areas of England and Wales have been hit flooding on Christmas Eve after heavy rain fell across the UK on Wednesday. Fire and rescue services described it being called hundreds of times after large swathes of England and parts of Wales were battered by rain. On Wednesday, a yellow Met Office weather warning for rain stretched from East Anglia across Leicestershire, parts of Birmingham and North London, and through to mid-Wales and Cornwall. Heavy rain continues across much of Wales' southern half of England, giving flooding in places. Later this evening, the rain will slowly ease and move south. This radar loops shows where the heaviest downpours have been during this afternoon. We had rain here today, so I don't know who's been affected the most. I don't know who's been affected the most. I really don't. So, if any of you guys in your area have been affected badly by what's going on, please feel free to say so. Anyway, North Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service said they have handled more than 250 flood calls and widespread flooding throughout the country. Several properties pumped out and people assisted from vehicles stranded in floodwater. North Hampshire Fire Control have handled in excess of 250 flood calls with widespread flooding throughout the country. Several properties pumped out and people assisted from vehicles stranded in floodwater. So imagine you got all your Christmas presents under the tree, then you wake up to flooded house. Your presents all waterlogged, they're all ruined, they're wrecked. Your Christmas day is ruined due to this flooding. But the main thing is, if you get out alive, that's what you always got to remember, whatever your circumstances are, you get out alive. Honestly, my Christmas, I've had a good Christmas for a long time. I'm hoping upon hope my Christmas will be something special after, despite what's been going on in my life. This is probably one of the worst predicaments. If you've got kids, you've got mum and dad, you're all living together, having this is probably one of the worst moments of your life. One of the worst moments, absolutely. So if any of you going through this water and flooding in your house, imagine how these people feel. There's always someone worse off around the corner. In North Hampshire, police were called to a landslide near some houses in Mansfield following heavy rain. The PA News Agency reported that a small number of properties have been evacuated. Meanwhile, the BBC reported that South Wales Fire and Rescue Service received 500 calls for help on Wednesday in the country. In East Anglia and Gloucestershire, people saw their homes flooded just before Christmas. Peterborough resident Patrick Lloyd told the PA News Agency he woke up to find that much of the home had been submerged in water. The 27-year-old said it has caused hundreds of pounds worth of damage. He added that he had to help rescue an elderly neighbour who became trapped without power. Lloyd said an 86-year-old woman had eventually been taken to hospital after spending around 50 minutes in the freezing floodwater. Luckily, a bloke driving by saw her and got out and helped us with her. We had to get the fire service out to get her onto board, and we lifted her out for an ambulance, he said. The woman spent the night at hospital, Lloyd said, but he didn't condition. On Thursday morning, 108 Environment Agency flood warnings remained in place in England, with many along the River Avon and the River Severn. National Resources Wales also issued 5 flood warnings in the country, but Alex Burkle, a meteorologist of the Met Office, told PA there's been a lot of wet weather around. We've had heavy rain across much of England and Wales, particularly southern parts of Wales, but also further east. Most places in England and Wales have been really wet, and we've seen strengthening winds too. There have been some gales in exposed parts, so quite unpleasant really. However, Burkle said the weather would be fine for many on Christmas Eve, with rainfall expected to cease overnight into Thursday. So you can only imagine how lucky we are to be here today without these floods. These floods savaging your front living room, savaging your kitchen where you're going to go and cook your Christmas dinner tomorrow. People don't realise how lucky we are to be, how lucky we are to not be under flood warning. How lucky we are to be here for Christmas tomorrow. So you think you're hard done by, you're not getting the support you need. These people are having the worst time than you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, small breaks. Just make sure you stay here, stay tuned. We've got lots on. Enjoy the show. Maybe don't enjoy the show. What's going on here?
Masks, I'm telling you why. Boris Johnson's locking you down. Making a list, checking it twice. He's moved on a lot from promo and likes. Boris Johnson's locking you down. He hears you and you're coughing while on that shopping spree. So stay indoors, click and
got Brexit on the dish after.
You in tier 3. So you better not sneer, you better not jest, you better not have that 7th house guest. Boris Johnson's locking you down. Now all the pubs in London are back to serving booze, which Boris said can go ahead if we serve it up with food. So sing happy birthday and sing it twice while washing your hands upon his advice. Boris Johnson's locking you down. And don't be a putz, don't be a fool. COVID spreads more in pubs than school. Boris Johnson's locking. Boris Johnson's locking. Boris Johnson's locking you down.
Ladies and gentlemen, moving on with the news. It's going to be a long show, I reckon. Hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes. We've got through 3 segments so far, ladies and gents. Thank you all for listening. It's going to be a great show, phenomenal show. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. We want to build the show. We want more listeners. We want more occupants inside PNG. Brexit deal. UK and EU announce agreement on future trade relationship. Here we go. This is what we've been waiting for. The end of the talks of the Brexit deal. Talks had stretched into the night and much of the day after last-minute hitch over fishing rights. UK has agreed and the EU have agreed a deal for the future trading relationship after the Brexit transition period ends on December the 31st. The two sides have announced. Boris did say he'd rather be dead in a ditch without doing Brexit. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told a Brussels press conference on Thursday, "It was a long and winded road, but we've got a good deal to show for it. It's a fair deal. It's a balanced deal, and it's the right and reasonable thing to do for both sides." Boris Johnson simply tweeted, "The deal is done." EU chief negotiator Michael Barnier, meanwhile, summed up the relief at the end of the 4.5 years of talks since the UK voted to leave the EU in June 2016, confirming the clock is no longer ticking. But he's added, today is a day of relief, tempered by some sadness as we compare what came before with what lies ahead. The historic agreement comes after marathon final negotiations went through the night on December 23, fueled by delivery pizzas and well into Christmas Eve, and the clock ticked down towards the December the 31st of deadline, when current trade agreements expire. Reports suggest that, as well as the talks in the room involving Chief Negotiator Lord Frost, Barnier and von der Leyen's aside, Stephanie Rizzo, and a series of phone calls between Boris Johnson and the European Commission President helped seal the deal. Von der Leyen appeared to rebuke Johnson's repeated trumpeting of sovereignty during the negotiations, suggesting countries are better off pooling our strength. We cut through the sound bites and ask ourselves what sovereignty actually means in the 21st century, she said. It's about pooling our strength and speaking together in a world full of great powers. So, they're not saying that, it's like, what she's getting at is the absolute sovereignty of the land shouldn't be the dictators of what's going to happen. It's the emotions of the affectionateness of the people. What's going to do to businesses, the current climate, how it's going to affect us. Like France shut their borders at Dover to let us know that we will not be getting trading come through Dover, coming through. So you're not understanding level. We want to understand what may have happened if we went out of Brexit, and that's exactly what France done. They shut their borders to let us know what could be happening. We're diminishing our free movement. In a time of crisis, about pulling each other up. It's pulling each other up instead of trying to get back to your feet alone. We're trying to be independent. They let us know you can't do it on your own. You need the EU. That's why they shut the borders. But she finished her opening remarks on an emotional note, saying, "Parting is such sweet sorrow." The deal means the UK has agreed terms for its £668 billion trade relationship with the EU from January 1st, after the end of the Brexit transition period, during which the country has continued following Brussels rules. There will continue to be no tariffs or quotas in trade between the UK and the EU, but the UK will leave the European Single Market and Customs Union, which has allowed seamless trade for decades. With new barriers including custom controls and check imposed on British firms trading with the EU, it means the UK has avoided the potential disaster of a no-deal Brexit. But the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, has forecast that even with this kind of trade deal, there will be a 4% long-term hit to the economy and delay to the UK's recovery from COVID. The die was cast on this form of hard Brexit when Johnson was elected Tory leader and Prime Minister, winning an 80-seat majority on a promise to negotiate a loose Canada-style trade agreement that would untether the UK from the EU law. Despite avoiding no deal, There is still the potential for disruption from January 3rd as business and the government adapt to new custom controls that would slow down movement through ports. The agreement was found after the UK and the EU reached compromises on the sticking points that have plagued the talks. The so-called level playing field for the standards in areas like workers' rights and the environment and fishing rights. At a Downing Street press conference, Johnson said the UK and EU had found an agreement on the level playing field that will allow, subject to arbitration, both sides to impose tariffs on each other. In the other, maintained lower standards in areas like workers' rights or the environment that are judged to amount to unfair competition. The move will be seen as a concession by the UK, but also a watering down of Brussels' initial demands to be able to unilaterally impose licensing tariffs on its partner other lower standards. Johnson's also said the UK had compromised on fishing rights by agreeing to a 5.5-year transition period. He said the EU had initially demanded a 14-year transition, while the UK had wanted 3. In comments that risked a backlash from fishing communities, the PM also revealed that the UK would not initially be allowed to catch all the fish in its waters under the terms of the deal, revealing the share would rise substantially from the roughly half today to closer to 2/3 over the transition. Frost claimed the deal will restore Britain's sovereignty in full, as Banner revealed that the UK has chosen not to continue taking part in Erasmus student exchange programme. Let me call in two. I'll take that call in 2 seconds, my friend. Today's agreement does not more than just deliver a zero tariffs deal. It covers areas such as services, aviation, road transport, social security, health, fisheries, and crucial law enforcement, and it allows us to participate in the Horizon scientific research programme. It also restores Britain's sovereignty in full. EU law ceases to apply the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice ends. There is no alignment with the EU rules, and our Parliament sets all laws for our country once again. I'm a bit overexerted when it comes to the fishery rights, to be honest. I thought that, if we got taken full responsibility of taking back our laws and our fishery rights, would have been somewhat an improvement to the UK. We're talking about research, keeping our resources, but I don't know what they was thinking in this agreement, because Brexit alone was to take some back of our resources. Absolutely. Give someone an inch, they take a mile. I think Boris Johnson, obviously, for whatever reason, maybe because that's shutting the border of Dover, is opened up a rebellion as such. And the French is, it's the balls in the French court then, isn't it? And he's got they weakened Boris Johnson's needs to dispose this deal. It comes after Johnson himself repeatedly claimed that no deal was the most likely outcome, and after he missed several of his own deadlines for agreement. Parliament is expected to be recalled next week to pass the agreement. All eyes will be on the side of rebellion from hardcore Tory Brexiteers in factors like the European Research Group, ERG, which is reconvening its so-called Star Chamber of legal experts to examine the 2,000 or so pages of text. But the deal is expected to pass, with Labour signalling for weeks it is likely back it, or if not, to abstain. The deal will also have to be backed by the EU's 24 member states, with Ambassador preparing to meet during the Christmas period to consider the deal. Well, I'm not sure what's your stance on the Brexit. I mean, even if you're from the EU, you're probably happy, you still fish the English Channel. You still fish the English Channel. We haven't got full sovereignty of our state. I think if we kept the fishery rights to our, proposal, what we said in the first place would have been a substantial thing for the UK. But, it's Christmas, Boris Johnson's probably in a good mood, and it's all about, it's kind of like a Thanksgiving, it's a traditional time of year where you forgive and forget and move on. I suppose it hit him at a week time of the year to oppose a deal. So, you can't mock Boris Johnson, you can't, you got Sir Keir Starmer and all the other ministers, even the other ministers in the Conservative Party, just thinking, let's just get this done, let's get this wrapped up and move on to 2021. We've had a terrible 2020, So I think he's just thinking, let's just get on, let's move on, let's accept the deal, move on to 2021. Let's hit politics in a different light. Let's get rid of this. The Brexit is moving. We've got COVID, we're fighting COVID. Let's let Brexit go. Let's get on with COVID. COVID, Johnson and Starmer thank very best at Christmas. This is always stay safe, thank NHS. Are the NHS at high risk? When you got to remember the care workers. Care workers, you got the elderly in the care homes that die in the care homes, then they go to, they don't go to hospital, but the ambulance takes them to wherever they will go, I don't know. Or they go straight into the morgue. They go straight to the morgue parlour. I don't know how it works. I really don't know. But when someone's heart stops, you ring the ambulance, don't you? It's the norm. So, but the care workers, why not the care workers? Well, why is it always the NHS? You've got to think the care workers. The fire engine, which you've seen, the floods, they ring the fire engines. Police get involved. All legal authorities that involve working hard day in, day out. People are not open their eyes, not open their eyes. Key workers. There's a lot of builders that are key workers, People that work in office, BT, Marlborough Bank. The key workers, you need them every day, don't you, to live, to survive, to get through the day. They're not mentioned, but NHS, always. Got to remember, there's a lot more key workers, even the workers in the supermarket. If they went off work, it's too risky, you've got real COVID positive people coming in today. You don't realise how lucky we are. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer have thanked the armed forces and NHS staff for their work in dealing with COVID-19. I think, especially supermarket, the stuff they have to put up with, the arrogance of people that in shopping centres. I've got off my own lid in the shopping centre, but thankfully they've forgiven me. I had a bit of trouble at the cash machine just outside the shop, and it's only the sake of 10, 20 quid, but I'm not financially, supporting myself as best I could be. I wish I could, but I've got to prioritise my priorities. I'm doing university. I'm doing my day-to-day regime on here. Got a roof over me, trying to keep alive. We're all trying to keep alive in such climate, but I'm doing what I can, doing my best, passing my exams, getting through, trying to get through my academics to get an easier job that I can do substantially. In a video call with troops in the UK and abroad, the PM saluted those who had helped build hospitals, deliver equipment and organise testing. You represent my view, the very best of our country, he said. In his Christmas message, Sir Keir said the pandemic had shown the values of generosity and kindness in abundance. While it had been a tough year for everyone and a traumatic one for many, Labour leaders said in every village, every town and every city, we've seen the very best of Britain. Even some of the athletes that are still performing, people like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, I think Billy Joe Saunders, they're still giving people what they want. you're watching your usual TV programs. They're all on. They're all key workers. They're putting themselves on the front line. I mean, I'm doing my radio. That's what I want to do full time. So in a roundabout way, we're all doing something. So even the politicians that are still doing their job, we're listening to what they're saying. They're still doing their job. They're still classed as a key worker. So don't think you're being left out. You need to be. You need to feel good about yourself. You want to be somebody. You want to go somewhere. We all need to wake up and realise we're all doing something, and it's not just the NHS staff. Because the NHS staff, don't get me wrong, they need saluting, but so does everyone else that are working through this climate. Because if you hit rock bottom and going through a mental life crisis, and someone's not, you feel like you're not getting mentioned. You feel like you're not welcome as a person in the community. You have a downward spiral and I feel good about yourself. So you're hearing it from me first. You're a key worker, whatever you're doing. If you're on universal credit and you're still producing some good quality about you, you're still, if you're not even something little as an artist or music writer, if you're producing, you're doing something good. Our country's rock. He paid tribute to the key workers that have been our country's rock. Servicemen and servicewomen who have stepped up, and the incredible scientists who have discovered a vaccine. While there was light at the end of the tunnel, in the country's fight against the virus, he acknowledged the difficulties many families face with an empty space around the Christmas table this year. I know it hasn't been easy. I know for many of our key workers, they will have to step up again one more time this Christmas, as will our armed forces who have deployed here and across the overseas, he said. Christmas is a time for all of us to be thankful for what we value most and care for those we have lost so much. And he urged the people to capture the spirit shown during the crisis to rebuild a better future for our country. Extraordinary things. Addressing troops stationed in Mali, Estonia, Somalia and Afghanistan, as well as those deployed in UK, Mr Johnson thanked them all for being our number one export. You represent, in my view, the very best of our country, the thing people really want to see around the world. It is not just abroad that it has been an amazing year for the Armed Forces services. So many of you have been responsible for doing extraordinary things here at home. Thousands of you helping to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, building the Nightingale's delivery PPE testing people, and now leading the way and helping the country to get vaccinated. Thank you for your sacrifice and your effort. You're bringing hope and encouragement to the entire country. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you can follow and subscribe our show. After this, Brexit deal on the dish. 10 things to look for and the Brexit deal. A post-Brexit agreement on trade and other issues have been agreed just a week before the new era in relations between the UK and the EU was due to begin. It should avoid the disruption of a no-deal Brexit in the middle of COVID pandemic, but the details are not being revealed. Expect hundreds of pages of dense legal text, which we'll have read, we'll read, but it will take some time to go through. A deal of significance raises a host of questions about how relationships will operate in the future. Here are 10 questions we'll be trying to answer. Fishing. One of the most difficult issues of negotiations. How many fish will the EU boats be able to catch in the UK waters in the future? And how long will the transition period last before new measures come into force? Officials involved the new negotiations say the UK initially wanted an 8% cut in the value of fish caught by the EU boats in the waters, while the EU initially proposed an 18% cut. Who has given more ground? The level playing field. What will the rules on fair competition look like to ensure that business on one side don't gain an unfair advantage over the other competitors on the other? The definition of what constitutes reasonable levels of state aid or financial subsidies for business will be important. Despite resolution, this will be a subject of years of negotiations to come. How would a deal actually be enforced if either side breaks any of the terms and conditions? UK chooses to move away more radically from EU rules in the future. How quickly can the EU respond? Will it have the ability to impose tariffs or taxes on UK exports, in one area for example, on cars, in response to breach of the agreement in another, fish for example? Number 4, European Court of Justice. The ECJ, European Court of Justice. The UK's highest court will remain the ultimate arbiter of the European law, but the UK government has said the direction jurisdiction of the ECJ in Britain will come to an end. So will the European Court play any role in overseeing the future relationship agreement? 5. Travel. What will the rules be for the British people who want to travel to the EU from the 1st of January 2021? We already know many of the details, but there may be any additional agreements on things like security on vehicles insurance, and would have been a detail on any agreement to replace the European Health Insurance Card, EHIC, which will stop being valid for most British nationals. 6. Financial services. The trade agreement is primarily about the rules for goods crossing borders. It will say far less about the trade in the services. Is there going to be a separate statement for the EU, which will recognise UK rules governing financial services as roughly equivalent to the EU rules? That would make it much easier for UK firms which export services to continue doing business in the EU market. 7. The data. This is a really important issue. What the data protection rules by the UK companies that deal with data from the EU. Again, the UK is hoping that the EU will issue a separate decision recognising UK rules as equivalent to its own, but the detail will need to be scrutinised carefully. Product standards. We know there will be more bureaucracy and delays at the borders in the future for the companies trading between the UK and the EU, but will the two sides agree measures to make things a little easier? This thing called mutual recognition of conformity assessment, which could mean checks on product standards would not need to be nearly as intrusive as they are otherwise might be. Professional qualifications. A lot of people, from accountants to chefs, work in different EU countries and didn't have to worry about crossing borders multiple times while the UK was part of the EU. But will UK professional qualifications be recognised across the EU in the future? And what restrictions will there be? Look at the security. It is not about trade. The UK will lose automatic and easy access to a variety of EU databases with the police use every day, covering things such as criminal records, fingerprints and wanted persons. So what kind of access will they have, and how will security cooperation work in the future? There are many other questions to answer. This agreement will be the basis from the UK and the EU relations for years, if not decades to come. And if the two sides have to continue to talk about how to implement its most effective, the team will be reading through a document when it's available and will add more of this story as soon as possible. Thank you for being patient, ladies and gents. We've still got more segments to get through. It's been a phenomenal show. Thank you all for being so patient. Thank you for supporting the show. That is the main priority.
It's Christmas time, with households mixing everywhere. And at Christmas time, in action Spain, we don't care. And in our 5-day window, you can spread your viral load. So throw your arms around your man at Christmas time. But say a prayer brave for the northern ones. At Christmas time, it's hard when you've lost all of your income. There's a world outside Westminster, a world of bitterness and fear, where all the pubs are and the Big Ben bells and tolls here are there hanging trying to do what the life, thank God, it's them instead of you. And then we say to Africa this Christmas time, because we've given all your cash to all our friends. In governmental court, like the act that didn't work. Do we know it's COVID time at all?
Christmas special, ladies and gents. Oh my goodness. Bear with me 2 seconds. So I do love my show. Really love my show. I love you guys come through supporting. I just want to wish you guys Merry Christmas. That's one thing I do. You know, I want you to have a great day. I want you to have a great self-setting new goals, admitting your flaws. How can you better yourself? How can you better yourself for the new year? You know, there's so many aspirations you can have out there in your life, you know. Better yourself. Better your situation. Moving forward, ladies and gents. Got a few more segments. Might be possible another 20, 30 minutes. Thank you all for coming through. Bojo. Talk about Bojo. More on Bojo, ladies and gents. More on Bojo. Johnson gets the deal both sides wanted to achieve. 1,645 days after UK voted to leave the EU, 328 days after we actually departed, the shape of our relationship with our nearest neighbours has been drawn and agreed, only days before the status quo will disappear. The deal that will determine how we do business with our biggest trading partner. The deal that both sides desperately wanted to achieve, but the deal was not, even though political logic suggested it inevitable. I mean, why did you think they fought Brexit, you know, trying to go stay independent? Looking at Guangzhou in China. I mean, we're trying to get away from the EU as it stands. That's what we're trying to do. That's the gist of the agreement. You know, David Attenborough. Let's look at the David Attenborough and you know, depict David Attenborough. I've seen a very different series of David Attenborough. The world as it seems. Looking at climate change, looking at industrialisation, globalisation. Just it's magnifying, isn't it? It's magnifying in every state. Every state, you know, you've got America, one of the biggest globalisation countries in the world. You know, we do a lot of trading with the US, do a lot of trading with China. But you look at the state of the environment, the pollution, the environment, the resources that they're taking up with population growth, industrialisation growth. This is why I think going into this, we're trying to pull Brexit through, trying to work with our own natural resources. I mean, how can we survive in years to come? Like, you know, youth today. That's what they're thinking about. I mean, these politicians, these professors, scientific people are making accountable for a resolution of the future as it stands today. I'm sitting here as somewhat a critical thinker, as they would look at it as well. We've got these political researchers looking through our resources, counting heads, head counting, people counting, looking at the resources, looking at the environment, looking at the air pollution. Some of these scientists can get, I mean, you don't have to look at China, you don't even have to look at China that closely to realise how much pollution in the air is. You hear it in the news. Guangzhou, the air They got particles. You walk through Grand Trail in a white shirt, it come out grey as you come out because the air is that polluted. It's such a built-up city. It's flats on top of flats on top of flats, or skyscraper buildings. Such a fumigated city in China. Globalisation is massive. We do so much trading with China. There's quite a lot of damage to the environment over there, but they've got over COVID before any of us. That's where it started. Nigel Farage always blames China. How can you blame China? How can you put the blame on anyone for COVID? You can't. You can't put the blame on anyone. You can't make anyone accountable for what we're going through. It's got to get through it, and it's simple as that. Damage warning. Certainly, the Prime Minister always said he would be willing to walk away, claiming and repeated that the UK would prosper mightily if there was no agreement in the end. It is true that he and his allies sometimes scoffed at the nature of the widespread warnings about the potential damage, abandoning the status quo without a deal could wreak. It's also true that some of the positions the EU was putting forward, even at the closing weeks of the talks, was seen as intolerable by the UK side, which was even in some moments surprised by what appeared to be the hardening of the attitudes late in the day. But it's also true that the Prime Minister, vast majority of ministers and MPs were concerned about the risk of taking a step into unknown. They wanted to avoid the disruption of leaving a relationship that was lasted for decades without a ready replacement. To rip off the tentacles spread into almost every feature of how the country is run overnight could have caused major pain. Even with a deal, changes are on the way that may not feel smooth, but sudden no-deal departure from the EU's rules could have been a disruptive and best disastrous at worst for some very concerned industries, adding to the country's difficulties during a pandemic that has caused so much pain. The 1,500 or so pages of the deal, if you're stuck for Christmas reading, there'll be plenty to keep you busy. They have not been published, far less there have been time to comb through the actual detail. My commitment in the coming days, without doubt, there'll be a theoretical bidding war. Which side have been given more ground, lost or won? There will be compromises on both sides, but the UK and the EU will have put a pragmatism over firm principle and agreed an historic accord to what will affect so many aspects of how we live. Boris Johnson has so often been accused of failing to keep his promises that he has made. Details of the deal may well contain evidence that some of his vows on Brexit will be broken, but he has managed to keep perhaps his biggest commitment after taking us out of the European Union, securing a deal. A huge political and personal relief perhaps, for a man whose name and reputation will be forever linked with the UK's decision to leave the EU. So Brexit has somewhat been passed with some negotiations. I think the warning for France, putting up the border has probably made him change a significant amounts. It's put pressure on him, hasn't it? He's had to conclude our principles. He's had to conclude our principle and change to make us get through. All the shops which are still open in Braintree Village despite Tier 4 restrictions. Non-essential businesses have had to close their doors, but there are some businesses and restaurants still available. Braintree Village confirmed which shops will remain for. The majority of the country has plunged into news strictest tier on midnight on Sunday, December 20, placing residents under increasingly familiar lockdown scenario. Non-essential businesses have been allowed to stay open in Tier 3, but the strictest tier forced all non-essential businesses to close their doors. Braintree Village has followed the government advice, but there are some services still available. There are 3 exceptions outlined by the government of shops continuing to trade, which are essential retail, stores that are offering local community and click and collect services, cafes and restaurants offering a takeaway service. Braintree Village has confirmed that the following 5 businesses are available in one way or another. You think you got all your sales after Christmas, it's going to be a nightmare for kids getting their Christmas money. They can't go and do their little bit of Christmas trade in the shops. Getting the Black Friday deals, January sales, it's not going to be the same, is it? Open hours may vary, but you can visit store to buy essential goods. Hollister is open for click and collect. The open hours may vary, so check online before visiting. Summer House of Aromatherapy, they are also open for click and collect, but collection is only on December between 23rd, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Pizza Express is available to delivery collection service. They are open Monday to Sunday, 11:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Wildwood, similarly Wildwood are doing the same, delivery and collection. They are open Sunday at 12 to 8:30. Our safety measures that Braintree have put in place will continue to. On our website, they said the pages, the signage includes posters, announcements, floor markings to help our guests maintain social distancing. Hand sanitising stations are available throughout Braintree Village. Although we expect significantly fewer guests to be at Braintree Village during this lockdown period, environmental teams to carry out frequent, extensive cleaning with focus on key touch points. You know, your Christmas tomorrow, you're in your little family support bubble. You know, if you don't feel up to it, don't go. It's not worth. You know, you get elderly parents. You think about going to your parents. You feel a bit sick. You feel a bit wheezy. Don't put your family under stress, under threat. The Essex family fighting for justice for their loved ones. The group are pushing for a statutory public inquiry in their memory. Essex is being fouled by mental health and send provision. How many more must die? Patients at Westmisnter and Chelmsford claim they are failing in Essex mental health services. For many Essex families, a statutory public inquiry is the only shot that they believe at having secured justice for their loved ones. It comes following a string of deaths under the county's mental health services over the last few decades, where failings were subsequently found in the care that certain patients received. Around 20 Essex families are now demanding answers for an inquiry which they see members of the staff question under oath for the first time. In Essex Live, they will be speaking to some of the families at the heart of the campaign who believe their children, parents and siblings were failed by the system. We will be sharing their stories every day over the next week as they shed light on their relatives tragically lost their lives in places designed to keep people safe. An 8-year fight for justice. In 2012, Matthew Leahy was found hanged just 7 days after being admitted to Westmisnter in Chelmsford, Essex. The inquest into his death in 2015 concluded that Matthew was subject to a series of multiple failings and missed opportunities over a prolonged period of time, but those entrusted with his care. A report from the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman last year also uncovered 19 instances of serious failings into Matthew's care under the North Essex Partnership NHS Trust, now EPUT. You know, it's very important that their mental health gets supported. You know, you really need to. Well, you know, people put effort in for these. You know, even I'm gonna be. You know, I suffer mental health. You know, I put my heart all into something, and you sometimes it's voluntary work that you're doing, but it puts a lot of energy. You put so much energy into doing your producing. It's not always warranted for. I mean, I've been in Castbox for some time. I used to do like 4 or 5 hour Castbox, but even to do an hour and a half Castbox, it takes 5 hours out of your day. The energy, you know, I could dig for I used to be able to dig underpinning for a whole day. And I'll tell you what, this is probably more damaging to my mental and physical health more than doing underpinning. I can tell you that much, because it's straining your head. It's straining, it's zapping all your energy out. But don't forget any of you lot read out loud. It takes so much energy out of your body. It does. You know, I used to run, when I was fit, I used to run like 30 miles, no problem. But to talk for 2 hours, LBC radio presenters do it, and all other radio presenters do it. But the energy it takes out of your body is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Even being a tutor, reading to a class for an hour. You know, you read for a whole hour. That's why they get the other students to read out, because it takes a lot of energy out of your body. It does take X amount of energy. And then not only that, if you've got to read, you've also got to amplify what is being read out. And then you've got to emphasise. You know, you've got to tell, you know, to be a good depiction of a reader, you've got to read it, and then you've got to relate to the audience to what you're reading, make them understand it, break it down. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy to read out instructions, then to, you know, amplify what you're reading, to emphasise the main characteristics within the reader. His mum, Melanie Leahy, has been campaigning for a statute of public inquiry for the last 8 years, and now has the support of around 20 other Essex families seeking the truth about what happened to their loved ones. There's a lot more to come out. Melanie claimed, "I know other things happened to my son, and in the last 8 years, not one member of the staff has been interviewed under oath. That's the only way I can get it through a statutory public inquiry. I'm going to fight this. This is a national crisis. If what I'm doing can create change here, it's going to happen elsewhere. It has to." Lisa Morris, whose son Ben was found hanged at the Linden Centre in 2008, is one of many families supported Melanie in her bid to the inquiry. You need someone to talk to. You know, you've got mental health. I suffer mental health. There's numbers to call. Call the Samaritans. Phone 116 123 24 hours a day. Childline 0800 111 111. Pay Papyrus, a voluntary organisation supporting suicidal teens and young adults. Phone 0800 068 4141. Depression Alliance, a charity for people with depression. No helpline, but it also offers resources and links to other information. Students Against Depression, a website for students who are depressed, have low mood, or suicidal. There's a website you can click on the Student Against Depression website. Bullying UK, a website for both children and adults affected by bullying. You've been bullied at home, you've been bullied on social media. International Bill of Rights. Think about International Bill of Rights. Look it up. Equalities. People breaching ASBO. Cyberbullying. Happens all on social media. Campaign against living miserably. Calm. For young men who are feeling unhappy, here's a helpline. 0800 58 58 58. She said, "We're not just grieving mums who can't accept their kids have taken their own lives. I think 12 years down the line after Ben's death, and after the internal inquiries, that's changed nothing. Let's have a proper, fresh-eyed investigation on all these deaths. Let's really see what's gone wrong and force the change. We've got one shot at this. The group wants to encourage other Essex families who believe their relatives were let down by the country's mental health services to join the fight. A spokesperson for EPUT said, Essex Partner University NHS Foundation Trust EPUT extends its deepest condolences to those impacted by the death of people in the care of former North Essex Partnership Trust. From the first day we established EPUT in April 2017, our top priority has been continuously improve patient safety. We have an ongoing programme of improvements so that we can provide the best possible care for our patients. We are cooperating fully with ongoing investigation into care patients under the former North Essex Partnership Trust. You know what the problem is in these mental health places? I've been in there. I know. I've been in the Linden Centre. I had a mental breakdown after retiring as an etiquette professional boxer. I'm still sitting in an etiquette position now. You know, you're probably thinking, you know, this guy is quite pragmatic, he's quite optimistic, knows what he's talking about. People that work in the Linden Centre are usually trainees, or, you know, they're the young students who come out of university in their early 20s, or, you know, just reaching their 30s. They haven't had a great deal of mental health. They haven't been through life. They haven't had life of purgatory, losing, you know, mum, dad, granddad, aunties, or whatever. They haven't had losing of wife, kids. They haven't been beaten up to a pole. They haven't been through life. They haven't been bullied through alcoholism or narcotics themselves. You know, they probably had somewhat trauma, but not to the substantial amount to the people having a mental breakdown in these, you know, that live in these absolute scenarios. People really don't realise what some of these people were going for. I mean, I was in with people in there probably didn't know who their real mum and dad were. They was never treated like you know, they had a real mum and dad either. They probably had foster parents all their life. They're sitting there, they're on all this medication, they're dribbling. They don't know really what's affecting these people, and they're not really people that you can turn to and think, yeah, you can help me. So like when you're a boxer, and I was a professional boxer, I always wanted to turn to someone for, you know, how can, you know, like, I couldn't sleep the night before the fight, but I always wanted to turn to somebody with the same impairment that I had going for the fight. You know, I've had head injury, I've had a lot of things in life, and I there's no one I could turn to, because not many boxers have been through what I've been through and still taking, you know, I call it the four-cornered circle. You know, I know it's a square, but I call it a four-cornered circle. You know, dancing on the boxing, on the canvas of the boxing ring. How can you sleep the night before knowing that you've already almost lost your life when you're 18? How can I sleep that night before the fight? But speaking to someone that's normal, that's never had a head injury, how can you sleep the night before the fight? It's not, you know, they haven't had a head injury, they haven't been through what you've been through, so, you know, it's not the same outcome. Same as this scenario in the mental health thing, isn't it? If you're speaking to these workers in there, they haven't been through the mental health you suffered, you're not going to take on board, are you? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get at, so you know where I'm coming from. You haven't been through my life, so why should I be asking you examples how to get out of my predicament? Because you don't know the answers. So I ain't going to ask you. That's exactly how you feel. You want to feel competent, that you're going to get the right feedback of the right person that's been through exactly the same thing as you. You know, maybe you're suffering heroin addict addiction, but the bloke you're speaking to is telling you, yeah, you can get on heroin, but he's never done heroin in his life, so how does he know? How can he explain to you to make you better yourself? It is essential to get the truth. The families have secured the support of Hodge, Jones and Allen solicitors, who have agreed to work on a pro bono basis to try and secure a public inquiry. They claim that only after a comprehensive and in-depth investigation will things start to change for the better. Nina Ali, partner at the HJA, said HJA is intent on hoping these families secure the justice that they deserve. You know, I'm thinking from a critical thinker's perspective, because they're the answers you want. You know, you want to be informed. You're not going to turn to someone that's been doing banging racing for answers. You know, how to take the bend doing a 200 mile per hour speed, are you? You know, it's a total different ball game. You need someone to be on the level. These carers in his home haven't been through the mental health you've been through, is what I'm suggesting. It is essential to get the truth of what happened. All these families whose loved ones died whilst they were under the care of Essex Mental Health Service are owed answers for their loss. The public inquiry is indeed to ensure that comprehensive and in-depth investigation is carried out and those responsible are held to account. It is only then that things can and will begin to change for the better. We urge all affected families and individuals to get in touch with HJA. The call for public inquiry is to include everyone affected by failings of Essex Mental Health Services. Families of children, adolescents, adults and elderly have died, and individuals have been through the system and survived. Perry Simph, associate of the HJA, claims it's not only families of the bereaved who are coming forward, but also ex-patients from whom we shared shocking reports of abuse suffered by victims whilst in care. These stories are harrowing. Mental health is a big thing. You got to understand it, know yourself. You need to know yourself before you find yourself. Christmas in Essex. Chelmsford Santa hit so hard by COVID rules, he had to work in Asda. A Chelmsford Father Christmas has been left with less than half of his bookings this year as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Each year in the run-up to Christmas, families look forward to visiting Santa Grotto and other festive events, but this year it has been slightly different. Usually Christmas events start as early as mid-November, but this year the second national lockdown meant a lot of them didn't start until December 2nd, when the lockdown was lifted. But the true 2020 style relaxed restrictions were short-lived, as most of the country was plunged into Tier 3 restrictions last week, followed by Tier 4 in a few days later. The changes in restrictions have left a lot of business struggling financially, and even Santas have been hit hard this year. Kevin Stem, 59, from Whittle, first started dressing up as Santa in 2017 when he entertained children at Bond Street in Chelmsford to run up to Christmas. He enjoyed it so much that he decided each year he would continue the Santa work, and 2018 he was Santa at the Grotto in his former BHS unit in the Meadows in Chelmsford. In August 2019, Kevin was approached by Emphasise Agency as a promotional and event staffing agency for more Father Christmas work. Last year, while under the agency, he had up to 4 bookings a week from entertaining at care homes, pubs and private jobs at people's homes. Lucky for Kevin, he anticipated for his Santa's bookings this year might be impacted by the pandemic, so he took other acting work and even become a key worker at Asda in Chelmsford Village. Kevin said it was a bit apprehensive from the front of Santa knowing about the social distancing. I thought maybe I won't be doing much Santa, so I knew I was going to have a balance, both Santa and other acting work. Santa jobs started coming during October, but then they were cancelled. I also had jobs lined up in late November. They were booked and I was confirmed before, but then they were cancelled because of the pandemic. As a result of the tier restriction, most of Essex now finds himself in. Kevin has 2 further jobs cancelled compared to the 4 jobs last year. Kevin says that his year he has just 1 to 2 Santa booked this year, and says he has lost around 65% of his work. When he's not Santa, Kevin's landed some roles in shows including Kevin Eve and the Crown as support artist. Kevin said, I didn't sign up for many Christmas Santa jobs this year. I knew I had other stuff. My income would have been around down 80%, and I just relied on Santa, and I didn't have other work because I have signed up for more Santa jobs, and they should be cancelled. It's not such an intimate experience now. The coronavirus pandemic has changed how Santa worked this year. Kevin said, pre-lockdown, Kevin said, urging people to act in local business continue to book Christmas events this year. He said, if you do everything right you can, have still maximum experience, I'd say be aware, make sure the kids are aware, but don't be frightened because each place is doing their utmost to keep everyone safe. I'm still looking at events. You're helping and as an actor earn money. I don't get anything if they're cancelled. I sympathise with Santa actors who have lost their work and don't know what to do. My heart goes out to them. Maybe I've just been lucky. A spokesperson for Emphasise said, we have been massively impacted this year. In March, we had 12 employed staff. We now have 6. We have very leaky bucket with no bookings made and been cancelled because of tier changes, and restrictions on bookings come down 60%. The positive news is that people have an appetite to see Santa Grottos, etc. are extending their hours to cover demand. Not long So, ladies and gents, amazing show. We've still got a little bit more to go. We've got another, I don't know, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. We've got a short break. Short break. Stay with me. Stay with me. Here we go.
Get involved in politics, you know it's not. I like politics, people politics.
Great show. Thank you all for your loyal listeners. Happy Christmas.
Solutions to our environment. Talk about hydro projects, everything. You know, you want to take part, you want to have your voice heard. You want to get involved in the environment. Friendly. Stop pollution to businesses, such as all kinds of business, farming, pollution of the air. So get involved. Now to start. Well, I'll give you a bit of detail. Firstly, please subscribe, share. I want more subscribers, more followers. This continues to find better experience. You have to get involved. Speak to one of your local constituency MPs. I'm a Conservative trainee councillor at the moment. I'm looking at for business, the sociological side of things in business. How does it interrupt in our business? Maybe their business too close to the suburban area in a state of criminology. Anyway, as a member, become a member. As a member, you can play a key role in the party, supporting the work we're doing in government and contributing the ideas, policies and future of the party. We're invited to join us at party conference and to attend local and national events. And if you're just joining us, once you've been a member for 3 months, you can also take part in the party elections. To reduce our environmental impact, we are no longer issuing plastic membership cards. Please be assured that this does not impact your membership. You will never be asked to produce a card to provide your membership. Our members are our most important campaigners. Your support is enabling us to build a bright future. It's only about, I think it's £25 a year. I pay, I think it's £2 a month. You pay it a month. You feel you've got that, have a takeaway at the weekend, or have a takeaway once a week. Nothing is it? There's nothing at all. Go to the pub, spending money on, cut down the activities. You want to help have your voice heard. It's very important. What your membership gets you, does it get you fish and chips? What's it get you? It's very important to subscribe to proclamation and that it's giving you key evidence of what's entailed of sign up to a part of conservative. I always say spine fight conservative work on progressive direction. You help us for elections, all of your subscription goes towards our campaigns. You get delays from inside the party. With regular member updates and exclusive member invites. Take part in campaign groups like our Conservative Women's Organisation, the Young Conservatives, all Conservative Friends groups. Meet like-minded people will make a difference to our country. The influence party policy by giving feedback on policy and deliveries. Choose candidates and vote for leadership elections, so you can choose the people you want to represent you. Come to party conference and spring forward. Join me out our MPs, councillors and activists at the BSM of the Conservative candidate. Connect with local Conservatives as a member. You'll become part of your local association, support local campaigns and attend social events with members just like you. So being part of something, it's like supporting local football team, supporting the whole environment. Talk about supporting the government. Being part of something is very important. Being part of something, you want to be something, you want to go somewhere, so you need to wake up and pay attention. Stand for election as a member, you have the opportunity to stand for election as a Conservative. So if you decide that you want to take part in that democracy, you can. It's proclamation news and gathered with the business from Professor at BND, ladies and help share and subscribe. I need more listeners. You know, I've got a lot of entertainment on my YouTube channel, singing, all kinds of entertainment, a bit of comedy. I've had a bit of comedy in the recent past. It's worth following my YouTube channel to get an insight. It's good content. I've got a lot of segments on my YouTube. You know, like an entrepreneur as such, you know, singing, rapping, all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to bring a wider audience into my YouTube channel. It should be a YouTube channel with massive gatherings, but not enough subscribers. So the more subscribers, the more benefit is. I mean, this is a business, a small growing business. It needs to be backed by the exchequer of a big paycheck and to get this ball rolling. This is proclamation news and gathering with a prodigious and prompt professor. This has been going for over 2 years now. Media studies since 1994, 95, I believe. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me time of day. Make sure you tune in. I'll be following through my live content shortly. Take care, my love, and speak soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for obviously coming. I need more like-minded, expert, pragmatic people like yourself listening. I have an interview today with another, hopefully, proclamation news and government consumer speaker, speaker, entertainer for the audience. I can't wait. Had an interview over fun. We're going to meet up possibly sometime next week, have a coffee. They studied university, PhD in English and also events manager as well. So, ladies and gents, thank you for listening. We've still got a little bit more to go before we head off and enjoy our Christmas. Got one critical listener always listening on YouTube.
Continue to try to end the French.
Got one critical listener always listening on YouTube. Thank you. That is, it could be Tony, I'm guessing. Brexit. How do the voters now feel about it? How do you feel about it? UK's departure from the European Union single market at the end of December marks the final stage of the Brexit process, triggered by the majority vote to leave in the final 2016 referendum. However, this does not mean that the debate about Brexit is over. Polls suggest voters remain as divided on issues as they were at the start of 2020. Would voters now choose remain or leave? YouGov has regularly asked people the question in hindsight: do you think Britain was right or wrong to leave the European Union? During the last 3 months, on the average, 39% have said that the decision was right, while 49% stated it was wrong. In hindsight, do you think Britain was right or wrong to leave the European Union? 50% said 49% said wrong, and 39% said right. These figures are similar to those recorded by YouGov in the 3 months leading up to UK's formal withdrawal from the EU at the end of January. At a point, 4% of that decision was right and 49% was wrong. The divided looks even sharper when voters are asked how they would vote. Now, in response to the question that appeared in 2016 referendum ballot paper: should the United Kingdom remain a member of the EU or leave the EU? In recent months, a handful of polls by the Congress, Delta Poll and YouGov have posed the question again. On average, they have found that 53% would vote remain and 47% leave. Same at the end of January. Of course, given that the UK has now left the EU, remain is no longer an option. The question now whether the UK should stay out of the EU or apply to join. In a couple of their recent polls, Cantor asked people to choose between these options. 51% backed staying out and 49% backed applying to rejoin. This points to a country that is still divided down the middle on Europe. Vote choice in the if a new EU referendum were held. Voters have changed their minds since the referendum. As many as 86% of those voting Remain in 2016 say they would vote the same again, while 81% of those who backed Leave say they would vote for Brexit once more. Similarly, 89% of Remain voters believe the decision was wrong, and 80% of Leave voters that it was right. Equally, according to Cantor, Only 1 in 8, 12% Remain supporters say the UK should stay out of the EU, while 8% of Leave supporters believe the UK should now apply to rejoin. Now, how did you voters feel about a deal with the EU? I mean, especially you big business people, you're travelling, you want to trade with the EU or this, that, and the other. It's very important that you understand the voting. You really need to get to grips with what's going on. You really do, because a lot of people are going to miss out because they haven't got their lack of knowledge of what's going on. I mean, I see critics every day in the social media not quite clued up on what the EU, the WTO, and what Brexit is all about, the single market of the Brexit, what it's all about. Of course, most immediate issues about Brexit has been whether the UK would agree a future relationship with the EU or exit the EU a single market without a deal. Polls have suggested that most voters would have preferred to leave with the deal that with one and without, but not at any price. Meanwhile, Remain and Leave supporters regarded the choice very differently. YouGov found that people preferred a deal to a no deal by 66% to UK to 15%. Kantar, by contrast, put support for a deal at more modest 44%. Still found only 21% backing no deal. The rest did not know which was better. Other polls have presented respondents with more complex set of choices, but largely found the same picture. Comrades on average found that 37% preferred a deal compared with 21% would prefer no deal. 90% preferred an extension of the transition period until the deal had been struck. Meanwhile, Opinion reported that 60% preferred no deal, while 26% backed a deal that would represent a clean break with the EU. Another 8% wanted a deal that left the UK closely aligned with the EU, while 26% felt rejoining would be the best option. However, supporting for leaving without a deal was much higher among Leave voters, and indeed might have been as popular as leaving with a deal. Kantar suggested 35% of Leave voters would have preferred to leave without a deal, while 34% backed having a deal. Comrades put support for the two options among Leavers voters at 38% apiece. However, while most voters preferred to be leaving with a deal, it did not necessarily mean that they are opposed to leaving without a deal, whatever the circumstances, with the YouGov simply asking people whether they supported or opposed leaving without a deal. As many as 32% said they were in favour, much closer to 44% were opposed. Among Leavers voters, as many as 67% they supported no deal. Meanwhile, the Opinion asked what should happen if the UK and the EU were to fail to reach agreement by the end of 2020. As many as 35% of voters and 69% of Leave voters said UK should leave without a deal. From some voters, the better course of action depends on the price to be paid. According to the Delta poll, 38% of all voters throughout the UK should be willing to compromise in order to strike a deal, but rather more 41% say the UK should not make any compromises. Among Leaving voters, not less than 57% are opposed to making compromises. Sir John Curtis is Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde and Senior Research Fellow at NatSen Social Research and UK in Changing Europe. There you go, ladies and gents. How did voters feel about Brexit? How did voters feel about it? The Brexit voters. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute prodigious show. The audience has been absolutely phenomenal. Have a wonderful Christmas. Have a wonderful Christmas Eve. Make sure you get your presents wrapped for tomorrow. Enjoy it with your families. Be safe. Hands, face and space. Stay safe. Have a wonderful Boxing Day, and I hopefully see you sometime after Boxing Day. I don't know how many shows I'll do after Boxing Day, but New Year, I'm going to be hitting it as hard as I possibly can. But I've got a lot of studying to get on with. I've got a few assignments to be getting on with in the next few months. I haven't been getting my absolute academic integrity. I've been prioritising this a bit too much rather than getting on with my study. So I need to get in my study, get it over and done with. As soon as I get done and dusted, I can get onto polarising better quality shows with the audience. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. We're coming back with a brand new edition after Christmas. It's bona fide conservatism. It's proclamation news. It's the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson. I'm Justin Johnson by name, but prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson by nature. God bless. Take care. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show time and time again. Speak soon. See you on the other side.